The moon had no name. It circled a dead star in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, far from any trade route or colony. Dr. Hana Kim stood on its gray surface, her boots crunching on ancient dust that had not been disturbed for millions of years. Above her, the research vessel Horizon floated like a silver needle against the darkness of space. Hana adjusted her helmet and stared at the structure before her. It rose from the ground like a massive crystal flower, its walls transparent and gleaming with inner light. The structure was enormous, easily the size of a small city, yet her scanners had detected it only by accident. Something about its material made it nearly invisible to their instruments. "This doesn't match anything in the database," Junho Park said, through the communication link. He stood 20 meters away, running his portable scanner over one of the crystal walls. "The material is unknown. The architecture is unknown. Even the energy signature is something I've never seen before." Hana walked closer to the entrance, a tall archway that seemed to invite visitors inside. The walls were covered in symbols, thousands of them, arranged in flowing patterns that reminded her of water or wind. She had spent 15 years studying dead languages from extinct civilizations across the galaxy. She had decoded the scripts of races that had vanished before humans even left Earth. But these symbols were different. They felt older than anything she had ever encountered. "How old do you think this is?" Junho asked, joining her at the entrance. Hana touched one of the symbols gently. The crystal was warm beneath her gloved hand. The dating scan came back with an error. The computer said it was impossible. What did it say? "Over 1 billion years old," Junho laughed nervously. "That can't be right. 1 billion years? Nothing survives that long, especially not something this intact." But Hana knew the scanners rarely made mistakes. She pulled out her tablet and began photographing the symbols, letting her translation software analyze them. The program ran through every known language in galactic history, searching for patterns and matches. Minutes passed. The program found nothing. "We should call the ship," Junho said. "Get a full team down here. This is bigger than just the two of us." Hana nodded but didn't move. Something about the symbols pulled at her mind. They weren't random. She could see the patterns, the way certain symbols repeated at regular intervals. It reminded her of music, of poetry. There was rhythm here, meaning buried beneath time. She began copying the symbols into her tablet by hand, tracing their curves and angles. Hours passed. Junho went back to scanning the exterior while Hana worked in silence, lost in her thoughts. The symbols began to make sense in small ways. This one seemed to represent sound. That one might be a connector like and or with in human languages. These three together could be a verb. The sun of the dead star began to set, casting long shadows across the moon's surface. Hana's tablet glowed in the gathering darkness. She had been working for 6 hours straight and her eyes burned with fatigue. But she was close to something. She could feel it. "Hana, we should head back," Junho called. "It's getting dark and we have limited power in these suits." "Just a few more minutes," she replied, her fingers moving rapidly across the screen. The symbols weren't just writing. They were instructions, a key. The more she studied them, the more she understood that this wasn't meant to be read silently. It was meant to be spoken aloud. The curves of the symbols suggested specific sounds. The arrangement indicated rhythm and tone. Hana stood at the entrance of the structure and looked at the first line of symbols above the archway. She had reconstructed what she believed was their pronunciation. Her heart hammered in her chest. This was either a breakthrough in xenolinguistics or the most embarrassing moment of her career. "What are you doing?" Junho asked, walking back toward her. "I think I know how to read this," Hana said quietly. She took a deep breath and spoke the words aloud. The sounds felt strange in her mouth, like no human language she had ever spoken. They were deep and resonant, with tones that seemed to vibrate in her bones. The phrase lasted only a few seconds, but as the last syllable left her lips, everything changed. The crystal structure blazed with light. Brilliant white radiance poured from every surface, so bright that Hana had to shield her eyes even through her helmet's protective visor. The ground beneath her feet began to hum, a deep vibration that she felt in her chest and stomach. "What did you do?" Junho shouted, stumbling backward. The light condensed, flowing like liquid toward the center of the structure. It formed a shape, vaguely humanoid but made entirely of pure energy. The shape grew larger, rising until it towered over them, easily 10 meters tall. Then it spoke. The voice came from everywhere at once, not through sound but directly into their minds. It spoke in dozens of languages simultaneously, ancient tongues and modern ones, human speech and alien dialects, all woven together into a single message that somehow Hana understood perfectly. Master, you have returned. Hana's legs nearly gave out. Yunyo grabbed her arm to steady her. The being of light contracted slightly, taking on a more defined form. It appeared almost human now, with a face and body, though still glowing with that impossible brilliance. I am Sentinel, the being said, its voice gentler now, speaking in clear Korean that both of them could understand. I have waited 1,300,007,214 years for this moment. Welcome home, daughter of the precursors. Precursors? Hana whispered. I don't understand. I'm human. We're just humans. The sentinel tilted its head, studying her with eyes that held the weight of eons. You do not remember. That is to be expected. So much time has passed. So many cycles of life and death and rebirth. But your genetic code does not lie. You carry within you the markers of the first ones, the builders, the race that gave rise to all intelligence in this galaxy. Junho shook his head. That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth. We have the fossil record. We know our history. You know only the most recent chapter, the Sentinel replied. There were humans before. Long before. They reached heights of achievement that the current galactic powers cannot imagine. They built wonders across 1,000,000 worlds. They seeded life where there was none. They created us, the Sentinels, to watch and guard their works, and then they vanished, leaving only their children behind to grow and evolve naturally. Hana's mind raced. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of trick, a malfunction in ancient technology misinterpreting their presence. But the certainty in the Sentinel's voice, the way it looked at her with something like recognition and joy, made her doubt her skepticism. If what you say is true, she said carefully, where are they now? The original humans? The Sentinel's light dimmed slightly. That knowledge was not given to me. I know only that they departed and that I was to wait for their return. I have waited, and now you have come, speaking the words of awakening in the tongue of the precursors. You are the heir. You are the one who will reclaim what was lost. The being extended a hand of light toward Hana. Come, Master. There is much I must show you. The galaxy you know is built upon the bones of your ancestors' civilization. The aliens who rule the stars, who have kept humanity small and weak and scattered. They know the truth. They fear the day when you would remember who you truly are. Hana looked at Junho. He stared back at her, his face pale with shock. Neither of them spoke. What could they possibly say? In the span of minutes, everything they knew about human history, about their place in the galaxy, had been turned upside down. Finally, Hana reached out and took the Sentinel's hand. The light was warm, welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. And deep in her DNA, in places she didn't understand, something stirred, something old, something that had been sleeping for 1,000,000,000 years, something that was finally waking up. The Sentinel led them deeper into the crystal structure. As they walked, the walls around them came alive with images, memories preserved in light and energy for over 1,000,000,000 years. Hana watched as human figures moved through scenes of incredible beauty and power, cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants, ships that traveled between galaxies in the blink of an eye, children playing with technology that reshaped matter at the atomic level. This is the archive, the Sentinel explained, its voice echoing through the vast chamber. Every Sentinel installation contains one, a record of what came before. Your heritage preserved against the erosion of time. Junho recorded everything on his suit's cameras, his hands shaking slightly. How many Sentinel installations are there? He asked. 17,423 remain active, the Sentinel replied. Many more were destroyed or lost over the ages. But enough survived to restore what was taken from you. Hana stopped before one image. It showed a council of sorts with representatives from dozens of different species sitting together. Humans sat at the center, but they were surrounded by beings she recognized from modern galactic politics. There were Vreks with their scaled skin and multiple arms. There were Kethrans, tall and elegant with their crystalline skin. There were dozens of other races, all looking toward the humans with what appeared to be respect. The precursors did not conquer, the Sentinel said, noticing her interest. They uplifted. When they found primitive species struggling to survive, they gave them the tools to thrive. Technology, knowledge, guidance. The Vreks were simple hunters on a dying world. The Kethrans lived in caves, barely sentient. The precursors found them, helped them, raised them up to the stars. Then why do those same races treat humans like servants now? Junio asked bitterly. Why do they keep us confined to a handful of colony worlds? Why do they deny us positions of real authority in the Galactic Council? The Sentinel's light flickered with what might have been anger. Because they remember. Not consciously, perhaps. Their oldest records were lost or deliberately destroyed. But in their genetic memory and their deepest cultural traditions, they remember being lesser. They remember looking up at the humans who made them what they are. And when humans reappeared on Earth through natural evolution, when you emerged from your homeworld reaching for the stars once more, they were terrified. Hana felt cold despite the warmth of the chamber. They've been holding us back deliberately. For centuries, they told us we were lucky to be allowed into galactic society at all, that we were newcomers who needed to earn our place. But all along, they knew the truth. They built their entire civilization on technology they scavenged from precursor ruins, the Sentinel continued. Their fastest ships use engines they barely understand, reverse-engineered from our installations. Their most powerful weapons are crude copies of tools the precursors built for construction and mining. They live in the shadow of a greatness they cannot match, praying that the true inheritors never wake up to claim their birthright. The images shifted, showing scenes of destruction, massive structures exploding, worlds burning, space itself seeming to tear apart. Hana watched in horror as fleets of ships fought against something she couldn't quite see. Some threat that moved through the stars like a plague. What happened? She whispered. Why did they leave? The Sentinel was quiet for a long moment. That information is restricted. I am not authorized to reveal it until certain conditions are met. I can tell you only that the precursors faced a choice and they chose to depart. They left instructions for us, the Sentinels, to wait, to watch, to preserve their legacy until the time was right. And now is that time? Juno asked. Now, the Sentinel said. A precursor descendant has spoken the words of awakening. The first seal is broken. The inheritance protocols have begun. What happens next depends on you, Master. Hana wanted to protest that she wasn't anyone's master, that this was all too much too fast. But the Sentinel raised a hand and the chamber around them transformed. The walls became transparent, showing the vastness of space. But instead of empty darkness, space was filled with lights, thousands of them scattered across the visible galaxy like stars. Each light is a Sentinel installation, the being explained. Most are dormant, waiting for the awakening signal. But now that you have activated me, I can send the call. One by one, they will come online. And with each awakening, humanity will grow stronger. What do you mean, stronger? Hana asked. In response, the Sentinel waved its hand. A holographic display appeared, showing technical specifications that made Hana's head spin. Shield generators that could protect entire planets. Medical technology that could extend life indefinitely. Energy sources that could power civilizations for millions of years without depleting. Manufacturing systems that could build starships in hours rather than years. The precursors built to last, the Sentinel said. Their technology was meant to serve for billions of years. All of this is yours to claim, Master. The knowledge, the tools, the power. Everything needed to restore humanity to its rightful place. Junho grabbed Hana's arm. Do you understand what this means? With this technology, we wouldn't just be equals to the Virex and the Kethrans. We'd be so far beyond them they couldn't even comprehend the gap. We could take back everything they stole from us. But Hana felt uneasy. Power without understanding was dangerous. She had studied enough fallen civilizations to know that technology alone didn't guarantee wisdom. We need to be careful, she said. We need to think about this. Think about what? Junyo's eyes were bright with excitement. Think about whether we should accept our own inheritance? Hana, humanity has been treated like second-class citizens for 300 years. We work the jobs nobody else wants. We get the smallest territories, the worst trade agreements. We smile and bow and say thank you to species that our ancestors created. Don't we deserve better? Before Hana could answer, the Sentinel stiffened. Its light pulsed rapidly, and suddenly the chamber filled with warning sounds. We have company, it announced. A ship is approaching. Vrex military configuration. They detected the activation pulse. Hana's heart sank. How fast can they get here? They are already in orbit. Weapon systems charging. They intend to destroy this installation before the knowledge can be transferred. Can you defend against them? Junyo asked urgently. The Sentinel's form grew larger, more imposing. I was built by beings who conquered galaxies. Do you truly think the Vrex pose a threat to me? There was no arrogance in its voice, only simple statement of fact. Don't kill them, Hana said quickly. If you destroy a Vrex military ship, It will be seen as an act of war. Humanity isn't ready for that. Master, they are preparing to fire on us. On you. Will you not defend yourself? Hana's mind raced. She thought about the politics, the delicate balance that kept humanity safe even if subjugated. One wrong move could trigger a war that would slaughter billions. But she also thought about the truth the Sentinel had revealed, about centuries of lies and suppression, about humanity's children being kept weak and ignorant by species that owed their very existence to human ancestors. Disable them, she said finally. Show them what they're dealing with, but don't kill anyone. Make it clear that attacking this installation is a mistake. The Sentinel inclined its head. As you command, Master. The being vanished, its light streaming upward through the crystal ceiling and into space. Through the transparent walls, Hana saw the Vrex warship in orbit, a massive thing bristling with weapons. She saw energy building around its main cannon, preparing to fire. Then the Sentinel appeared in space between them and the ship, a tiny figure of light facing down a vessel a kilometer long. The Vrex ship fired. A beam of pure destructive energy lanced out, enough power to vaporize a mountain. The Sentinel raised one hand and the beam simply stopped, frozen in space like a photograph. With its other hand, the Sentinel reached out and touched the warship. The ship went dark. Every light, every system, everything shut down in an instant. The massive vessel went from a deadly war machine to a lifeless piece of metal drifting in orbit. Through her suit's communication system, Hana could hear panicked voices from the Vrex crew. They were alive but powerless, unable to move or fight or even call for help. The Sentinel returned to the chamber, reforming its body from light. The ship is disabled but intact. The crew is unharmed. They will drift until another vessel comes to retrieve them. It will take approximately 72 hours for rescue to arrive. 72 hours, Hana repeated. That gives us 3 days before news of this spreads. What happens in 3 days? Junyo asked. Hana looked at the holographic star map, at the thousands of lights representing Sentinel installations scattered across the galaxy. She thought about her people, about the ambassador and the council representatives who worked so hard to maintain humanity's fragile place in galactic society. She thought about the millions of humans who didn't even know they had been lied to, who accepted their second-class status because they'd been taught it was the natural order. In 3 days, she said slowly, the galaxy is going to learn the truth, and everything is going to change. The Sentinel glowed brighter. Shall I begin the awakening sequence for the other installations? Hana wanted to say no. She wanted to slow down. News of the Sentinel's awakening spread through the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. The disabled Vrex warship was eventually recovered, and its crew told stories that seemed impossible. They spoke of a being of pure light that had stopped their weapons with a gesture, of technology so advanced that their military computers couldn't even classify it. The Vrex government immediately declared the reports classified, but it was too late. Rumors spread through every space station, every colony, every communication network. Humanity had found something. Something old, something powerful. Hana returned to the human diplomatic station orbiting Earth 3 days after the awakening. She expected to be greeted with excitement, perhaps even celebration. Instead, she was met by Ambassador Minho Choi and a room full of terrified officials. Do you have any idea what you've done? Minho demanded the moment she entered the conference room. He was a thin man in his 60s with gray hair and the tired eyes of someone who had spent decades fighting losing battles. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. The Vrex are demanding your arrest. The Kethrans have recalled their ambassador. 5 different species have filed formal complaints. They think we're planning some kind of uprising. Maybe we should be, Junho said quietly. He had insisted on accompanying Hana back to Earth, refusing to let her face the bureaucrats alone. Minho's face went red. Planning an uprising? Against civilizations that have thousands of ships to our dozens? Against species that control half the galaxy's resources while we barely control our own solar system? Are you insane? Hana took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Ambassador, please, sit down. Let me explain what we found. For the next hour, she told them everything. The crystal structure, the symbols, the awakening of the Sentinel, the revelation about humanity's true history, about the precursors and the legacy they had left behind. She showed them the recordings Junho had made, the images from the archive, the technical specifications of technology that could change everything. The room was silent when she finished. The officials looked at each other with expressions of disbelief and fear. Even if this is all true, Minho said slowly. Even if humans really were once the dominant species in the galaxy, what does it matter now? That was 1 billion years ago. We're not those people anymore. We're the civilization we built ourselves from scratch on Earth. We can't just claim someone else's achievements as our own. They're not someone else, Hana insisted. They're our ancestors. Their genetic code lives in every human alive today. The Sentinel recognized us. It called us home. And what does this Sentinel want in return? Asked Minister Jiwan Lee, the head of Human Colonial Affairs. She was a sharp woman who trusted nothing she couldn't verify personally. Ancient AIs don't just give away power for free. What's the price? Hana hesitated. I don't know yet. The Sentinel says there are protocols, conditions that need to be met before certain knowledge can be transferred. But it seems to genuinely want to help us, or it wants to use us, Jiwan said darkly. An AI that's been alone for 1 billion years? Who knows what it's thinking, what it really wants? Before Hana could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed and a voice came over the intercom. All personnel to emergency stations. Unidentified fleet approaching Earth orbit. Multiple VREX signatures. This is not a drill. The conference room erupted in panic. People rushed to terminals, pulling up displays that showed space around Earth. Hana's blood went cold. 63 VREX warships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They were moving toward Earth in a clear attack formation. They're hailing us, a communications officer reported, his voice shaking. Put them through, Minho ordered. The display screen activated, showing a VREX commander. The alien scales were a deep crimson, indicating high military rank. Its 4 arms were crossed in a gesture of aggression, and its eyes blazed with fury. Humans, it hissed, its translator turning the alien sounds into accented Korean. You have violated the Technological Heritage Act. You have activated precursor technology without council approval. You have endangered the stability of galactic society. Surrender the device and the individuals responsible immediately, or we will consider this an act of war. Minho's hands shook as he activated his microphone. Commander, please. We can negotiate this. We're prepared to allow council inspectors to examine the site. We want peace, peace. The VREX commander laughed, a harsh chittering sound. You found a weapon and you want to negotiate? No. You will surrender now or we will take it by force. You have 1 hour to comply. The screen went dark. The conference room fell silent except for the quiet sobbing of one of the junior diplomats. What do we do? Someone whispered. Minho looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 seconds. We surrender. We have no choice. Our defense fleet couldn't stop even one of those warships, let alone 63. If we resist, they'll burn Earth to ash. No, Hana said. Everyone turned to look at her. No, she repeated, more firmly this time. We don't surrender. We asked the Sentinel for help. Are you mad? Jiwan demanded. You'd drag us into a war we can't win? We can win, Hana said, her voice growing stronger. You saw what the Sentinel did to that warship. It disabled it with a touch. Imagine what it could do to an entire fleet. And then what? Minho asked quietly. Say the Sentinel destroys 63 VREX warships. Say it protects Earth, what happens next? The VREX will send 600 ships. 6,000. They'll call on their allies and we'll face half the galaxy united against us. Humanity will be extinct within a year. Hana wanted to argue, but she couldn't find the words. He was right. One battle wouldn't win a war, especially not against civilizations that had been building their military power for thousands of years. Master, a voice said in her mind. The Sentinel, I can hear your distress. Do you require assistance? Hana realized that since touching the Sentinel, since being recognized as Master, she had maintained some kind of connection with it. She could feel its presence at the edge of her consciousness, patient and waiting. Can you help us? She thought back. Can you protect Earth? I can destroy this fleet easily, the Sentinel replied. But the ambassador is correct. Destroying one fleet will only bring more. If you wish to survive, you must be prepared to fight a longer war. And for that, you will need more than one Sentinel. How many have awakened? 47 installations have completed their activation sequence. More come online every hour. At current rates, all 17,000 will be active within 30 days. 17,000. Hana tried to imagine that kind of power. 17,000 entities like the Sentinel, each capable of disabling entire fleets. With that kind of force backing them, humanity wouldn't just survive. They would dominate, but did they want that? Did she want that? There has to be another way, she thought desperately. Some way to resolve this without war. Perhaps, the Sentinel said. But it will require you to be honest with your people. They need to understand what is truly at stake. Hana looked around the conference room at the frightened faces, the panicking officials. These were good people. People who had spent their lives trying to carve out a safe existence for humanity in a hostile galaxy. They deserve the truth, Ambassador, she said aloud. Request an emergency broadcast. Every human station, every colony, every settlement. I want everyone to hear what I have to say. Minho stared at her. What are you going to tell them? Everything, Hana said. The truth about our history. The truth about what the other species have been hiding from us. The truth about what we could become. And then I'm going to let them choose. Choose what? Whether to fight for our future or surrender to our past. 20 minutes later, Hana stood before a camera, knowing that her face was being broadcast to every human being in space. 3 billion people on Earth, another 2 billion scattered across 47 colony worlds and hundreds of space stations. All of them watching, waiting to hear what she would say. She took a deep breath and began to speak. She told them about the precursors, about the civilization that had spanned the galaxy 1 billion years ago. She told them about the Sentinels in the archive, about the technology and knowledge waiting to be reclaimed. She told them about the Vrex fleet hanging in space above Earth, demanding surrender, but most importantly, she told them about the choice they faced. We can surrender, she said, looking directly into the camera. We can give up the Sentinel, let the Council study it and lock it away. We can go back to being second-class citizens, grateful for whatever scraps of territory and resources the major powers allow us. We can be safe. She paused, letting the words sink in. Or we can fight, not with weapons, not yet, but with truth. We can demand a place at the Council as equals. We can insist on being treated with the respect our ancestors earned. We can take the inheritance that was left for us and use it to build a better future. This won't be easy, she continued. The Vrex and the Kethrans and all the others, they'll resist. They'll be frightened and angry. There may be conflict. There may be violence. But for the first time in 300 years, we have a choice. We don't have to accept what we're given. We can reach for what we think to consult with. The vote came in with 47 minutes to spare. 73% of humanity had chosen to stand and fight. The number surprised everyone, including Hana. She had expected it to be closer, more divided. But it seemed that 300 years of being treated as lesser had left humanity ready for change. Ambassador Minho looked at the results with a mixture of pride and terror. Well, he said quietly, we've made our choice. Now we have to live with it. He opened a communication channel to the Vrex fleet. The crimson-scaled commander appeared on screen again, its forearms twitching with impatience. Your hour is nearly up, it said. What is your answer? Minho straightened his shoulders. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. Commander, we respectfully decline your demands. The installation on the moon is our heritage, left to us by our ancestors. We have every right to study it and use it. We will allow Council observers to verify that we pose no threat, but we will not surrender our own property. The Vrex commander's scales darkened with rage. Then you have chosen war. You foolish creatures. You have signed your species' death warrant. Perhaps, Minho said calmly. Or perhaps you should consider what you're really starting here. That installation disabled one of your warships without effort. Are you certain you want to see what 63 ships will look like when we defend ourselves? For the first time, the commander hesitated. Behind the arrogance, there was fear. The Vrex had spent 3 centuries studying precursor ruins, trying to understand technology that was beyond their comprehension. They knew how powerful those ancients had been, and now they faced descendants of those ancients with access to functioning systems. You are bluffing, the commander finally said, but there was uncertainty in its voice. Test us and find out, Minho replied. The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, everyone in the conference room held their breath. They waited for the fleet to open fire, for the bombardment that would turn Earth into a lifeless rock. Instead, nothing happened. The Vrex ships held their position but didn't advance. Minutes ticked by in agonizing slowness. They're arguing among themselves, Junho said, studying the sensor readings. Their internal communications are going wild. I think some of them want to retreat. Master, the Sentinel's voice spoke in Hana's mind. The other species are also responding. 53 ships from the Kethrin Collective have just entered the system. 38 from the Talvek Union. They're coordinating with the Vrex fleet. Hana's heart sank. They're all coming together against us. No, the Sentinel said. Read their transmissions. They're arguing. The Kethrins are demanding that the Vrex stand down. The Talvek are proposing negotiations. Your ambassador's gamble worked. The major powers are divided. Hana shared this information with Minho, who allowed himself a small smile. Divided is good. Divided we can work with. Open a channel to all of them. It's time we had a real conversation. What followed was the strangest diplomatic session in human history. Representatives from 4 major galactic powers and humanity gathered in a virtual conference space, their holographic forms arranged in a circle. The Vrex commander was there, along with a Kethrin High Judge, a Talvek speaker, and representatives from dozens of smaller species. Ambassador Minho spoke first. You all know what we've found. You know what it means. Our ancestors, the precursors, built the foundation that your civilizations stand on. The question now is what we do about it. What do you want? The Kethrin judge asked. Its crystalline face was unreadable, but its voice carried genuine curiosity. Revenge? Compensation? Territory? Recognition, Hana said, stepping forward. We want to be treated as equals. Not newcomers who should be grateful for scraps. Not servants who should know their place. Equals, the Vrex commander hissed. Based on what? Because you found some old ruins? That doesn't make you equal to civilizations that have been building and growing for thousands of years. Based on this, Hana said, and she gestured to Junho. He activated a holographic display showing technical specifications from the Sentinel's database. Ship designs that made current vessels look like toys, weapons that could destroy stars, medical technology that could cure any disease, energy systems that could power entire planets indefinitely. This is just 1% of what the Sentinels have in their archives, Hana continued. And there are 17,000 of them waking up across the galaxy as we speak. We could keep this knowledge to ourselves, build ships that would make yours look like children's playthings, create weapons that would render your militaries irrelevant. Within a generation, we could be the dominant power in the galaxy, and there would be nothing you could do to stop us. The silence that followed was heavy with fear and calculation. But we don't want that. Minho added quickly, domination isn't our goal. We've seen what happens when one species holds all the power. The strong abuse the weak. The advanced exploit the primitive. We don't want to repeat that pattern. What do you want then? The Talvek speaker asked. It was a small being, barely a meter tall, but its 3 eyes gleamed with intelligence. Cooperation, Hana said. The precursors didn't conquer. They uplifted. They shared their knowledge with species that needed it. We want to do the same. Share this technology with all of you, freely. Help everyone advance together. But only if you're willing to treat us as partners, not subjects. The Vrex commander laughed bitterly. Share precursor technology freely? Why should we believe you? Once you have the power, why wouldn't you use it? Because we're voting on it, Junho said. He pulled up the voting data from human space. 73% of humanity chose to stand up for ourselves. But look at the comments, the messages people left with their votes. The overwhelming majority said they wanted peaceful integration, not conquest. Humans have been the underdogs for 3 centuries. We know what it's like to be powerless. We don't want to inflict that on others. The Kethrin judge tilted its head thoughtfully. An interesting proposal. But there's a problem. Our governments, our militaries, our entire social structures are built on the current balance of power. If humans suddenly have access to superior technology, everything destabilizes. There would be panic, possibly civil war within our own species. Change this dramatic needs to be managed carefully. Then help us manage it, Minho said. We're not experts at galactic politics. We've been excluded from real power for so long that we barely understand how the system works. Work with us. Help us integrate this technology in a way that benefits everyone without destroying existing institutions. And if we refuse? The Vrex commander demanded. If we decide that the risk is too great and move to eliminate you before you become unstoppable? The Sentinel's voice suddenly filled the conference space, speaking aloud for all to hear. Then you will fail, and your species will suffer greatly for the attempt. The holographic forms all reacted with shock. The sentinel materialized in the center of their circle, its form of light towering over them all. "I am Sentinel," it announced, first of the Watchers, eldest of the Guardians left by the Precursors. "I have listened to this debate with interest. The masters who created me faced similar choices long ago. They chose to share their knowledge with lesser species, to uplift rather than dominate. Some of those species repaid that kindness with gratitude and cooperation. Others grew arrogant and aggressive, believing themselves entitled to what they had been given." The Sentinel turned its glowing gaze toward the Vrex commander. "Your species was saved from extinction by the Precursors. Your homeworld was dying and you with it. They gave you the technology to restore your ecosystem, to reach the stars, to build an empire. And how did you repay that gift? By suppressing their descendants when they reappeared. By hoarding technology you barely understand. By treating the children of your saviors as servants and obstacles." The commander's scales paled, but it said nothing. However, the Sentinel continued, turning to Hana. "My master shows wisdom beyond her years. She understands that revenge solves nothing. That domination, even justified, only perpetuates suffering. The Precursors learned this lesson at great cost. I hope their descendants will not need to learn it again." "What happened to them?" the Kethrin judge asked quietly. "The Precursors. Where did they go?" The Sentinel's light dimmed slightly. "That knowledge is restricted until humanity proves itself ready to receive it. I can tell you only that they faced a choice between power and growth. They chose growth, and in doing so they left this galaxy behind. But they left instructions for me and my kind. They hoped that one day their descendants would return and do better. Build a society based not on strength but on cooperation. Not on domination but on mutual respect. Can we do that?" Hana asked. "Can different species really work together as equals?" "The Precursors believed it was possible," the Sentinel replied. "But they never achieved it themselves. They were too powerful, too advanced. Other species could never truly be their equals, no matter how much knowledge was shared. There was always an imbalance. But you," it gestured to all of them, human and alien alike, "you are closer to equal than any civilization in 1,000,000,000 years. You have a chance they never had." The conference space fell silent as everyone absorbed this. Then the Talvek speaker said something unexpected. "I propose a trial period. Humanity shares limited portions of precursor technology with 3 months had passed since the crisis, and the galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted." The Joint Technology Council met weekly, with representatives from humanity and all major powers working together to study and distribute precursor knowledge. Progress was slow and sometimes frustrating, but it was progress. Hana stood in the archive of the original Sentinel installation, now a busy research center filled with scientists and engineers from a dozen species. She watched a Kethrin crystallographer work alongside a human physicist, both of them excitedly discussing the properties of a new energy shield design. Nearby, a Vrex military advisor was teaching a human officer about interstellar navigation patterns, their earlier hostility replaced by professional respect. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, still mistrust, still moments when old prejudices surfaced, but they were working through it. "You seem pleased," the Sentinel said, appearing beside her in its usual form of light. "I am," Hana admitted. "It's not what I expected, but it's good. Different species learning from each other, building something together. The Precursors would approve," the Sentinel said. "You've passed the first test." Hana turned to look at it. "The first test? There are more?" "Always more tests," the Sentinel replied. "Life is nothing but tests, but you're ready for the next one. Come with me. It's time I showed you why the Precursors left." They walked deeper into the archive, past the areas that had been open to researchers, into sections that remained sealed. The Sentinel passed through barriers of light that would have stopped anyone else, and Hana followed. They entered a chamber unlike any she had seen before, circular and vast, with walls that seemed to be made of pure starlight. "What is this place?" Hana whispered. "The heart," the Sentinel replied, "where the deepest truths are kept, where the final instructions of the Precursors await." The walls came alive with images, but these were different from the historical records Hana had seen before. These showed the Precursors at the height of their power, cities that spanned entire star systems, technology that bent the laws of physics, power beyond measure. But the images also showed something else. The Precursors weren't happy. Despite all their achievements, despite mastering the galaxy, they looked lost, empty. They had everything, the Sentinel explained. Knowledge, power, immortality. They had lifted dozens of species to intelligence, spread life to barren worlds, built wonders that would last forever. But in doing so, they had made themselves alone. No species could be their equal. No challenge remained that they couldn't solve. No mystery existed that they couldn't unravel. The images shifted, showing debates among the precursors, arguments, disagreements about the future. They faced a choice, the Sentinel continued. They could remain as they were, eternal and unchanging, shepherding the galaxy forever. Or they could move forward, evolve beyond physical form, beyond this dimension entirely, transcend into something new. But transcendence required giving up everything, their bodies, their technology, their power. They would have to let go. And they chose to let go, Hana said softly. Most of them did, but before they left, they planted seeds. They adjusted the genetic code of certain species, including humans on Earth, to carry the markers of their heritage. They built us, the Sentinels, to watch and wait, and they left instructions. The Sentinel gestured, and a final image appeared. It showed a precursor, one of the last, standing exactly where Hana stood now. The being looked tired but peaceful, ready for what came next. They left us a test, the Sentinel said. When humanity awakened us, when you claimed your inheritance, we were to observe, to see if you would repeat their mistakes or learn from them, if you would use power to dominate or to uplift, if you would choose strength over wisdom. And what happens now? Hana asked, her heart pounding. Did we pass? You're still being tested, the Sentinel replied. Every day, every choice. But you've shown promise. Enough that I can give you the final gift. The chamber filled with light, and Hana felt something change inside her. Knowledge flowed into her mind, not forced but offered. She could accept it or reject it, the choice was hers. She saw equations that explained the fundamental nature of reality. Designs for technology that could reshape matter at the quantum level. Medical treatments that could extend life indefinitely. Engines that could cross between galaxies in seconds. But most importantly, she saw the path. The way the precursors had transcended. The method they had used to evolve beyond physical existence. The door to the next stage of existence left open for their descendants. We could follow them, the Sentinel said. Humanity could take this knowledge and transcend just as the precursors did. Leave behind the struggles of physical existence. Become beings of pure consciousness, exploring dimensions that material creatures cannot even imagine. Hana felt the pull of it, the temptation. To leave behind all the problems of the physical world, all the conflicts and struggles, and become something more. It would be so easy, or, she asked because she sensed there was an alternative. Or you could stay, the Sentinel said. Remain physical, remain limited, remain vulnerable. Use the knowledge you've gained, not to transcend, but to help others. Guide the younger species. Share what you've learned. Build a civilization based on cooperation rather than hierarchy. It's a harder path. You'll face challenges, conflicts, failures. You'll never achieve the perfection the precursors sought. But you'll build something they never did. What's that? A community of equals. Hana looked at the path to transcendence, shining and beautiful and inviting. Then she thought about the research center outside, about the Kethrin and the human working together on shield technology, about Ambassador Minho patiently negotiating treaties, about Junho excitedly teaching alien engineers about human problem-solving methods, about billions of people across the galaxy slowly learning to see each other not as superiors or inferiors, but as partners. The precursors were alone, she said slowly. They had power, but they were alone. That's why they were unhappy, isn't it? That's why they left. They realized that being the strongest, the smartest, the most advanced meant nothing, if there was no one to share it with as equals. Yes, the Sentinel said. They understood too late that the journey matters more than the destination. That growth requires challenge, and challenge requires equals. That's why they left the test. They hoped their descendants would be wiser than they were. Hana made her decision. We stay. We use the knowledge to help build something better here, not to escape to somewhere else. We work with the other species, not above them. We prove that different peoples can live together as equals. The Sentinel's light grew brighter, warmer. That is the answer I hoped for. The answer the precursors hoped for. You have passed the test, Master, not by claiming power, but by choosing wisdom. Not by ascending to greatness, but by working toward goodness. The light faded, and Hana found herself back in the familiar sections of the archive. But something was different. The knowledge remained in her mind, available but not overwhelming. She understood now that the true inheritance wasn't the technology or the power. It was the lesson, the choice, the opportunity to do better than those who came before. She returned to the research center and found Junho working with a team of engineers from 4 different species. They were arguing good-naturedly about the best way to modify a ship engine, each bringing their own perspective, their own expertise. Hana, Junho called when he saw her. "Come look at this. We think we've figured out how to combine precursor engine design with Kethrin crystal technology and Vrex navigation systems. It's going to be faster and more efficient than anything any of us could build alone." Hana smiled and joined them. This was the real inheritance. Not things or power, but the ability to work together, to learn from each other, to build something greater than any one species could achieve alone. Over the following months and years, the galaxy transformed. Technology spread, but so did cooperation. The strict hierarchies that had defined galactic society began to break down. Species that had been enemies for millennia found common ground, not because humanity forced them to, but because working together proved more effective than competing. There were still problems, of course. Old hatreds didn't disappear overnight. Some factions in every species resisted change, clung to traditional power structures. There were conflicts, sometimes even violence. But slowly, steadily, things improved. The Sentinels became teachers and advisors rather than masters. They shared the precursor knowledge freely with all who were willing to learn, and they watched with satisfaction as the galaxy grew more united. Hana eventually returned to Earth. She was older now, her hair showing streaks of gray, but her eyes remained bright with purpose. She stood in a park in Seoul, watching children play. Human children, Kethrin children, Vrex children, all together, seeing each other not as aliens but as friends. "Master," the Sentinel's voice spoke in her mind, though it remained on the distant moon where it had first awakened. "How does it feel?" "Strange," Hana admitted. "Wonderful, imperfect, exactly right. The precursors would be proud," the Sentinel said. "You've built what they never could. Not